Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first episode of Back to the Blockbuster of 2022. My name is Gaius Bowling, and here with my buddy Owen.
What's up, guys? Happy New Year. Welcome to the first episode of the new year. Can't wait to get started. And we are actually joined by another guest today. We have Antonio Palacios here with us. Would you like to introduce yourself, man?
Yeah, I'm Antonio Palacios, host of the Cultworthy.com. I just recorded my first episode of 2022 today as well, and just put it out.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so if anyone's wondering why Brittany looks and sounds different, it's because Brittany is feeling under the weather, and we were going to do it with just Owen and I. We did that with when Owen slept through one of our recordings, and it was just me and Brittany. But I thought it'd be a good opportunity to bring another guest on because that's what we want to do more of this year. So it felt like the right time to do it. But Brittany will be back on next week, hopefully, and we'll be feeling up to snuff to record next week.
Got some big shoes to fill.
I'm already my goal was to get on more podcasts this year. Hey, you started it off right at the start of January. Yeah.
There you go, man. 3 days in.
I do want to start by saying, how was everyone's holiday weekend? You were coming off of Christmas, the holidays, and New Year's Eve. Antonio, did you get into anything? Did you watch anything?
Oh man, yeah. I got mostly Christmas presents for myself. all those Black Friday sales from boutique labels, Kino Lorber, Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome. I got all my shipments in right before Christmas. So that was kind of my whole stretch of Christmas.
Nice.
Catching up on those and planning all my new episodes based off of those.
Nice,
man.
Yeah,
that's awesome. My holiday weekend was pretty good. I got a chance to watch the Harry Potter 20th reunion, and that was just a blast from the past for me. I've been a Harry Potter fan ever since I was a little kid, and getting to see a little bit of behind the scenes footage and these actors who, they spent 10 years of their lives together from 11 to 21, and so they really they grew up together, and that's such a integral part of not only a child's life, but a young adult's. And there's just a lot of different ways that you can grow up, and to be surrounded by some of those, especially British greats, Alan Rickman, you have the actress who plays Professor McGonagall, pretty much everyone that they got to interact with were some just serious powerhouses. And to really grow up and see that, and then also just to have a little bit of nostalgia and just, I was smiling during the whole thing. So if you guys haven't gotten a chance to see it and you like Harry Potter, I highly recommend it.
Well, that's the thing too, is do you ever really escape that when you are part of one of the biggest franchises ever? It's been 10 years, but do you ever stop being the Harry Potter kids?
Never. I don't think so. I think that's why a lot of them, especially Rupert Grint and Emma Watson, a lot of them have shied away from acting. They never technically have to work for the rest of their lives ever if they don't want to.
True.
But I think that they've been so synonymously associated with this franchise that it's really hard for them to stray out of character. And Daniel's done a better job, I think, with his ability to really go after whatever he wants to do. He's done so many strange films. Horns was probably one of the weirdest ones I've seen that was entertaining, but also what the fuck are you guys? What is this script right now?
And Guns Akimbo.
Yeah. I think he's done a really good job kind of distancing himself and making a name for him with a lot of these sort of cult indie movies. But besides that, I feel like a lot of those other young actors have really strayed away from the limelight.
Yeah, what I was struck by, because I watched it too. I actually watched it today because I was off. And I don't know if it's because they're from there, but I'm just so surprised by how well adjusted they are, considering all that fame that was kind of thrown at them at a very early age. They don't, like you said, they never really have to work again in their lives if they don't want to. They could completely live off that franchise. And they kind of talked about, Emma Watson talked about moments where she felt like she wanted to quit. I think it was around the 5th film because, the fame was kind of catching up and, she kind of felt alone. They kind of addressed that a little bit where, Tom Felton said that he had all his cronies, and then Rupert Grint and Daniel Radcliffe had each other because they're both guys. But, she was a young girl and she was kind of alone in that for a little bit. So it took her a little bit to kind of realize her place and all that. But considering the level of fame they got at such a young age, and they've been able to kind of sustain that. I know Emma Watson's talked about she's kind of shying away from acting a little bit. She hasn't really announced that she's retired, but I think she's kind of just wants to focus on herself. But they were able to kind of get out of that franchise and do other work that people know them for. Outside of that, they kind of prove themselves outside of that franchise. So I thought that was really cool to kind of see them come back and talk about it and have them be proud of it too. Like it's not something that, of course, you wouldn't be ashamed of it, but you know, like I think some people when they have franchises like that, they try to run away because they want to like be known for something else, and they seem like they full on understand like how important that franchise was for their career and their lives, and it will be for the rest of their lives, I think.
Totally. And also no one went off the rails. No
went off the rails.
No one actually no one took fame too seriously and went crazy.
Yeah, I think it's a British thing.
Oh, that's totally true.
I think there's like a British discipline, a European discipline that like if that was an American production made in America, those kids wouldn't have made it past like the fourth film. There would have been some tragedies.
Having $10 million when you're 16 years old, I mean, you could pull Justin Bieber or anything.
That's like what I was gonna say.
I think you would be hearing that they were like replacing them by like the fifth movie. Like, oh, like if it was like someone here, if it was like the Lindsay Lohans.
There is a story where I think it was in the third one, the actor who played Crab, so one of Draco Malfoy's goons, he was arrested for like cocaine and drunk in public or something, so he was in jail and they couldn't cast him or something like that. So there was at least one got into some trouble, but besides that, I think they all were pretty respectful of themselves.
Not totally small in the scheme of things, right? Considering what you
not so bad.
But yeah, I got a chance to check that out. I rewatched The Matrix Resurrections again.
Oh, okay.
Because we were going to talk about a little bit, like, because there's not like a ton of news this week because of the holiday. Even though I didn't particularly enjoy it, I'm still surprised by how it's really flopping. It's not doing well, like, at all. Mm-hmm. I thought like it's only made like about $30 million in since opening on December 22nd. Out of all the like releases from like the few days before Christmas leading up to this weekend, it had the biggest drop from that weekend. It dropped 64%.
Wow.
Second weekend. Even like the Kingsman dropped only like 23%, and Sing 2 dropped 9.7%. We didn't get to talk about this last week so much because we did our year in review. I'm curious to know what you guys think. If is it the HBO Max factor because it's available to stream and then also available to pirate? Is it just because the response to the movie is so polarizing, it's not really working for people? Like, why do you think it's just not performing that well at all?
I mean, I got plenty to say on just the whole stream of failures we've seen in the cinemas over the last 2 years. I talked at length and kind of got some heat about my opinions about Ridley Scott's comments about how he thought The Last Duel failed because of apathetic millennials on their cell phones. I think we're having a problem with retro fascination. Like they're trying to reboot and rebuild stuff from our past. I mean, like Matrix came out on the day of my graduation, and I skipped my graduation in 1999 to go see The Matrix for like the second time. But now I'm a dad and I got a job, and I was disappointed by the last two. And I am not confident that Hollywood knows what me now at age 40 wants. So I'm going to spend my time and my money on things that I actually know is going to be something good, something fascinating, not something that feels like a quick cash grab. And that's what this Matrix Resurrections feels like to me. I mean, I'm glad that Keanu's in it. I'm glad they got a lot of the original cast in it, but it wasn't enough for me to get out of the house to go see it.
Yeah, I think that's tough because no matter when you bring a movie like that back from, I guess, resurrecting it from the dead. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, Gaius, with like the Ghostbusters and rebooting that. So they've been doing this for all of the last couple of years, just like you said, Antonio, and some have been successful and a lot of them haven't. And I really think that you hit it right on the head where their ideal perspective on what they think the audience is wanting is missing the mark. And there's a lot of like, it's pretty much, let's throw a bunch of old Matrix fun things that they loved about the first movie. Let's do a little shout out and a throwback to that. And then not really introduce a whole lot of new ideas that are going to keep me interested or really get me out of the theater. The poster, for God's sake, was a red and a blue pill. We've seen that already.
Right.
So what is really going to get me to go rather than say, oh, I used to love those movies. Now it's been 20 years. And what's different about this one? Not much. They're just a little bit older.
I mean, one of the things I think I would have loved to have seen in this is something completely unexpected. For me, I think it's something like when they did Jason X or Freddy versus Jason, where they kind of flipped the whole genre on its head, made it almost satirical, made it silly. It attracted a whole new audience that then went back and watched all the old ones. I would have been interested in seeing them do something like that. I mean, they broke the mold with the first one. Why would you not want to try and break the mold with this new one that's almost 20 years later? Like, why do you just want to do the same old thing, you know?
Yeah, I agree. Going back to what you said about, because the first one is still great, it's still innovative. And I've talked to Owen about this too, about the sequels. Like the second one I can deal with as like passable, like popcorn entertainment. Like it's like there's some entertaining moments and it's fun, like occasionally, but the third one is not. And I guess I kind of wonder, was there even a real like call to action to like really make another one? Was there like, were people out there like, oh, I really want to see this, like another chapter of this? And I guess I thought I assumed there was some, because people seemed excited for it when they heard about it. But as it opened, I kind of saw it waning a little bit. And I thought that was because it was also opening in the wake of like Spider-Man. I thought that was taking a lot of the attention away from it. But it seemed like that those first few days on like Twitter, when a movie first opens, like since everyone can be a movie critic now, like people can destroy a movie in like a day. And when I saw like how the response was like kind of mixed, I was like, if it starts there, like the theatrical response to it isn't going to be that significant, and people are going to be like, okay, it's not really worthy of me going to the movies to see. If I do watch it, I'm going to watch it at home, which is what I ultimately did. I watched it on HBO Max, and I'm actually glad I did, because I think I would have been a little upset if I chose to see that in theaters, because it just really wasn't, it didn't really do anything new. And then there were attempts to kind of poke fun at the franchise a little bit and poke fun at Warner, but they try to be, there's a lot of meta humor in it. Some people think that works. I didn't particularly think it works in this. It was like watching, like, it was almost depressing watching something that was once so great and innovative and special kind of like limping to the finish line. That's what it kind of reminded me of.
I also feel like we're living in a day and age now where people are questioning the reality. So back in 99, where we thought we lived in a world that we understood, now we live in a world that we have no idea what's going on. We feel like we are in the Matrix. Why do we even want to watch that? It's too close to reality, even though it seems so fantastical.
Yeah. And I also think that it's interesting that you say the third one was just very, very, I mean, it didn't really hit the right spots, Gaius, because it seems like a lot of these reboots that they're kind of going for, the final movie in that sort of trilogy or franchise was always unsuccessful. And so it kind of seems like they're like, all right, enough time has passed and they forgot about how shitty this last one was. Let's try and bring it back because we need to make some more money off of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I was reading Deadline. They were saying a lot of things were wrong. Like the timing of releasing it was wrong. Having it open a few days after Spider-Man was wrong. It also fell victim of being the last movie of the whole like HBO Max, day and date release strategy. Like I'm sure that Warner Brothers, I mean, we've talked about it before about whether or not that worked or not. I'm pretty sure they're happy that that was the last one and they're not going to do it anymore. They're going back to like the strict like 45-day theatrical window, because while it worked for certain movies, like they talked about it today, that it worked for Mortal Kombat, it streamed really well on HBO Max. It kind of hurt some of their bigger releases. I still think money got left on the table with the Suicide Squad releasing it that way. Even though Dune was overall successful, I still think there was some money left on the table with releasing it that way too. And then they're seeing it with The Matrix, like the $200 million movie that's not gonna make $50 million here, and that's definitely not what they were expecting. I would think. I would think Warner Brothers was probably hoping for more. It's also happening with like other movies that are like, and like The Kingsman's not doing well either. That could just be a lot of like, there's been ads for the movie for 2 years because it was supposed to come out.
Yeah, seriously.
So many different release dates. And like,
all this stuff was supposed to come out 2 years ago.
Right, no fault of its own, right? It had all its release dates were delayed because of like COVID and everything. But by the time it finally comes out, you've seen so many.
No one's excited for it anymore.
You saw it already. You're like, oh, I mean, and there might, like I said, there might not also be any big interest in a prequel to The Kingsman. I know if people were really hungry for that either. And it also just sucks not to be Spider-Man right now, I guess too. Like it's.
Do you think that this Matrix flop would be the biggest one of 2021? If it loses $150 million, I would say that's probably the biggest one of the year.
It might be.
Yeah, you're probably right.
If it can recover overseas, which I don't know if it can, there's been other expensive plots that, like, not as bad as that though. They were talking about West Side Story today too. I had no idea that cost $100 million to make, but it did. And
I'm not surprised. They probably had like 500 extras that they needed for multiple scenes.
And it's just like, that's not going to make its money back either, despite really good reviews and probably going to get Oscar attention too, but it's not going to recoup any of its money back. And, you know, it's interesting when movies like that flop, because I feel like no one really wants to talk about a Steven Spielberg movie flopping, like directly writing about it. So no one's really talking about like why that didn't work. And like, I think it's important
brave enough to go after Steven.
Like, no one wants to say that about him because it's Steven Spielberg, but like, you know, there's also release timing with that. I think that should have come out closer to maybe on Christmas Day. It would have been like a better time to release a musical. But also, it's been a tough sell for musicals all like year. I mean, In the Heights didn't do well. Another Warner Brothers HBO Max streaming release that didn't do that well despite good reviews.
Well, I feel it's like food trends. I feel like they are always like 5 years behind the trend for some of these things. Like the time to release In the Heights and West Side Story would have been when like Glee was at the top of its game on TV. But they get so excited when they see those spikes in numbers that they start going into production of these things. They're going to take 2-3 years to make, and then they're 5 years too late by the time they actually hit the cinema.
And then COVID adds another 2 years to that.
Oh yeah.
It's another 7 years behind.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I agree with that. I think like some of these, like especially musicals like In the Heights, like probably should have hit a little sooner than they chose to release. Like they're, you know, I think the same thing might happen to Wicked. I mean, even though that's a really popular Broadway musical, I think so much time has passed. Are people really craving a movie version of Wicked, even if you have like a really good cast behind it? But I think
that's been in development forever, though. Like that's
forever.
Been in development for a decade at least.
Yeah, I feel like that was in development right after Wicked like debuted on Broadway. They were like, we're gonna make this to a movie.
No movie, yeah.
I feel like it was, yeah.
And like they just like now it's just like now it's feels too little, too late to kind of do that. Like I agree with you. I agree with you about that with West Side Story. I know, like, and I don't know, maybe if things would have gone as planned, if it would have come out last year at Christmas time, would have done better. Like it might have, you know, like they said the biggest issue with movies like West Side Story is that they skew older, and older people are still afraid to go to the movies. They're not willing to risk going out in crowds like that yet. They said that had a lot to do with probably why it didn't perform well. But yeah, it might have made a few extra bucks if it came out last year. I still don't think it would have been like a huge hit if it came out as planned either. I just think that
I don't think so either.
Like movie musicals are kind of a dime, but like, I mean, do what they did with Tick Tick Boom and put it on Netflix and let people gradually discover it on their own. Like instead of, I don't know a lot of people that will go to the movie theater now to go pay to see a musical adaptation like that right now.
I guess La La Land was probably the last one that people really flocked to.
I think so too, and I think that's because that was like an original idea, and they also marketed it well. It had a good platform release too. They didn't like open it all at once. They opened that one really smart. And during the same time period though, like December when like those movies really hit. I think West Side Story, if it was going to be a hit, it should have been a platform release. They should have just kind of gradually opened it, especially if it's going to be like contending for awards. That seemed like the best way to do it. But I mean, it sucks to watch some of these movies kind of fall by the wayside. Like I was talking about Nightmare Alley with someone, and I wish people were seeing it, but like it already faded away after like 1 or 2 weekends. It's just not the right time, I guess, to release stuff like that. You know,
but they do it for awards season. That's the part that's like the rub. It's like, where are you going to put your money? You're going to put your money towards the end of the year so these films stay fresh in people's minds for award season, or do you release it in a middle of the year, which is normally kind of like the dead zone, but at least you get time to build an audience? And I don't know, like I get frustrated with Hollywood sometimes because they're still living by the old standard of the theatrical release, get your big opening weekend in, and then hopefully recoup your money on DVD and home video, which no one's doing anymore. It's streaming now. Like, so if you're going to go big on your opening weekend, put it on a time that really matters. Christmas is kind of over now. I think people are kind of over and done doing this whole Christmas time movie thing. They're going to do it when they're not busy, when they're not worried about large gatherings. Like, I think they have to rethink the whole structure of release because the game's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the structure of release for sure. The way I was kind of thinking about it too was the way that they're marketing everything. I mean, I think that a lot of these studios are really missing the mark with their marketing and marketing to the correct people, and then which platforms they're using for it. Because I mean, the second I see too much of an ad or of a movie, it slowly starts for me to be desensitized towards it. I think that happened with Kingsman. It's starting to happen for Uncharted a little bit, where I just constantly see so many trailers and the same thing over and over again. I'm like, all right, well, have I already seen the movie pretty much? Like, I kind of already know what's going to happen on every single platform that I end up going on to. It's on YouTube, Instagram, social media. I turn on the TV, it's commercials on media. So they're really just throwing it all at you without really leaving much chance for us to want to discover it, rather than just kind of being constantly thrown in your face.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking about this with someone where I was kind of comparing it to the McRib. Like, it comes out every few months, or like maybe once or twice a year. Everyone gets excited for it, but how many people actually go get it? Like, we're more fascinated by the idea that it's back, even though we have no intention to actually go get it. And if we get it, we get one and realize, oh, why do I even like this? I'm just excited by the marketing of it because it's a tradition, it's a thing. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of what we're seeing right now with the way they're marketing these movies and these reboots and these remakes. It's like, yeah, of course I'm going to get excited for it, but am I really going to go see it? And if I do see it, what's the chance of me actually liking it?
And people who've never even had a McRib are just going to go, oh yeah, McRib's back, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, it's a thing.
Yeah, I guess
part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about trailers we're probably tired of seeing a lot of, because this news just dropped like today. Morbius got delayed again. Mm-hmm. This is the 7th delay, they said. They're doing it, they said, because of the rise in like the Omicron variant, COVID and all that. And I know that Sony wants to like optimize the maximum amount of money they can make from it, which is probably why they pushed it back again for 3 months. It was going to open at the end of January 28th. Now it's opening April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. So that makes me think that they can delay it again and just say it was like one big joke that was going to come out on April Fool's Day.
Huge joke.
But it's one of those movies too that like I've seen so many ads in the last, God, when they started showing them, like
a year ago.
Yeah.
And now, like, I think I saw someone put on Twitter saying that it got delayed for the 7th time because of the rise in people not giving a shit about the movie anymore. Like no one's gonna care at this point. I'm surprised Sony kind of did it. I mean, I get the reasoning, I guess, but it seemed like they would want to release that right on the back of Spider-Man to kind of
exactly.
And I don't know why they're not doing that, because they have proof that like that movie is doing really well despite what's working against it. Like people are still going to see it, and it's made a lot of money, and it's, you know, it's already the biggest movie of the year in like with 3 weeks. So I'm really surprised they decided to push it back. I thought they would just kind of wing it and see what happens, especially, you know, you would want to build on that momentum, I would think. So wait until April.
Do you think they're making a mistake by keeping too many secrets about it? Like not letting us know like what universe it is exactly? Or like, do you think that people don't want to take that gamble and see something that's in it that they're not expecting? If I'm going to go spend my money, I kind of want to know, am I going to see Venom in this? Am I going to see Blade in this? Am I going to see Spider-Man in this? Like, I kind of want to know where I'm standing with it, because I feel like a lot of this secrecy, I think it happened with the Star Wars movies too. You're giving us too much of like the visual candy and not letting us know enough about what the structure of the story is. And that's what you're trying to sell us. And then you sell us a movie that's got a really terrible story and we don't care about the candy.
Cool CGI.
Yeah.
All right. I kind of agree with you. I think that what they're trying to do is because it worked for Sony and Marvel doing that with the new Spider-Man. They were able to kind of build on those secrets. But also Spider-Man has the benefit of like so much history and such a huge fan base. Morbius doesn't, even if in that universe, he doesn't have the, you know, that kind of pull to be like, okay, I can kind of dangle these secrets in front of the audience. And is Blade going to be in it? Is Venom going to be in it? Like maybe Spider-Man will show up, or which Spider-Man will pop up in it? Like there's like, I mean, there are already people speculating that certain people are just filming extra scenes for it, and that's why they're delaying it. That's what kind of happens when these delays happen. Everyone kind of gets something in their head and then they run with it. And if that isn't the case, they end up being disappointed, right? Because they're like, I have this theory and I bet it's right. And when it's not right, they're like, oh, well, that's not nearly as good as what I came up with.
What I want to say for that case is like everyone kind of has their own idea of why they're pushing it back. Since they've pushed it back so many times, for me, I'm under the impression that the movie's done. and they just don't give a shit. They just want to make as much money as possible, and they're moving it back. So to me, it just seems like a cheap excuse to get more people to go and see it, instead of, oh, we actually have more work to do in order to give this to people. It's like, well, if you're done with the movie, just release it and let people decide whether or not they want to go see it. Don't release it on a day that you think you might make just a little bit more extra cash. Because I know for a fact, if it's been pushed back this many times, you're done. You're done. Nothing else to shoot. All you're doing is giving us the same commercial with maybe a few different cuts. Like there's what else are you really doing for it? And that's what's frustrating to me, is it just seems like they're just doing it for the sake of possibly getting some more ticket sales at the box office, rather than actually making it a better movie, or actually revisiting some things that could potentially make the story or the film better in general. Because it just seems cheap, a cheap excuse to me.
And talk about like a delay in trends. I mean, 5 years behind on everything. They're now 10 years behind on Jared Leto. Like no one really cares about Jared Leto anymore. We don't. Like we were done with him in 2016. And it's funny because like I was thinking about the other day, if Ridley Scott could reshoot a whole movie and replace Kevin Spacey with Christopher Plummer in a matter of 2 weeks, why not spend an extra few bucks? And hey, we now have Ryan Gosling as Morbius instead of Jared Leto, and boom, we got a new movie. You know, like the Jared Leto train, I think, is kind of done.
Because that would also spark some interest. It's like, oh, hey, listen, we had some differences, and now we're doing the whole thing with someone else.
Surprise. What we need is a scandal. We need like a serious scandal to be like, all right, Jared Leto's done in Hollywood, but now we've got so-and-so in this role.
Yeah, it is weird that his momentum really did like wane, didn't it? Because like it was after he won the Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club, they were like, all right, well, let's like put him in some more stuff. And then Suicide Squad happened. And depending on
his credibility,
depending on who you believe, it was the studio's fault or the director's fault or someone screwed up. I know a lot of his stuff got cut, but like in that, like, yes, in the interim, like he kind of like lost whatever momentum he had going from him after that Oscar win. So now it's not even cool to kind of see him in something like Morbius. It's like, all right, I suffered through him in House of Gucci. Like he was the only person I didn't like. And that was because I felt like he was in a totally different movie compared to everyone else. But
I feel like he's trying to up his game each movie because he feels his credibility waning as an actor and his star power. He feels it going. So he feels he has to like kind of boost it up each movie, and it's just giving us more and more ridiculous performances, honestly.
Yeah, it's funny.
He's trying too hard. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, we're doing that.
He's really just trying too hard.
Yeah, we're doing that back to the Blockbuster Approved thing a little later, and we actually did one with him, and it was
two no's, a yes, and
I disapproved of him only because I started out being a Jared Leto fan, like his earlier stuff, and it's just like the stuff recently, like it. You know, the stuff I'm not a fan of like method acting, and that seems to be his shtick. The like, you know, completely like what he says disappear into a role, but it comes off a little like elitist and kind of douchey a little bit. But yeah, like the girl who's on our show, she definitely didn't approve of him. Owen straddled the fence. He couldn't decide whether or not.
Hey, listen, man, his early work, you can't discredit his stuff. So it's like, I know he's trying too hard now, but if he does another like. He's still somewhat of a good actor. I think that he just is trying too hard. If he went back to his roots, then he might give us a good performance in something. So that's why I was kind of excited to see Morbius, because I'm interested to see how he is in the lead. I wonder if I'm going to hate him, just like I've hated him in a lot of his other stuff recently. So I was kind of interested to see that.
Well, I've always liked him as like the second banana. I've always liked him as like a side character, supporting character, even as a cameo sometimes. I did like his performance in Blade Runner 2049. I thought he made a good villain because they didn't give him that much attention. I think that's where he plays the best. But I'm sure as an actor, an A-lister, he doesn't want to be that. He wants to be the guy with top. He wants to be top billing.
Yeah, exactly. I fully agree with that. And it's so funny too, because I don't think his career like started that way. I think he seemed pretty comfortable being like what you said, like second banana, and then like he got a taste of being like
the star.
And now that's kind of all he wants now, which is pretty interesting. Like,
I mean, if you're looking for longevity, Alec Baldwin said on his podcast one time that he was his happiest when he had 10 lines in a movie, because he would steal every scene he was in with those 10 lines. He would get the attention and people would talk about him. He didn't have to have the pressure of a 3-month shoot. He didn't have to have the pressure of, I mean, well, now he does, but you know, with all that other stuff, it's better to have a very small window where you can be a big part of that movie with only a few lines. Like, look at Anthony Hopkins' performance, even though he got Best Actor in Silence of the Lambs. The dude's got like 10 minutes of screen time. Like, that's kind of what it seems to be the magic window if you are one of those character actors.
Yeah, it's like when Alec Baldwin's performance in The Departed was unbelievable. But he was like not even a tertiary character. I mean, I guess you could consider him one of those, but like every scene he was in was fantastic.
Yeah. Yep, I agree. So someone was saying online that Morbius just has to be like Venom level good to make money. Like it has to be like the quality doesn't have to be like extraordinary, but because like the comparisons are there, especially with some of the trailers. A lot of people think that it's going to be on that level as far as like narrative wise. It's not going to strive to be much more than that.
It just has to be cool. If it's not cool, then it's the story doesn't matter. It just has to look cool. That's pretty much what people want in this.
I don't know. 7 delays is a lot. I mean, I can't imagine being excited on April 1st. Like, oh, we finally get to see it. I just can't imagine like, waiting in line. Like, oh, this is it. I'm sitting down to watch Morbius. And like, I guess that by that point, your expectations are so low that if it's like even like a little okay, like that would be enough of a passing grade, I guess. Like at that time, like, it doesn't really have a lot to live up to at that point.
For sure.
If it gets delayed again, I'm just gonna be like, oh, just dump it.
Maybe they're doing it because they know the movie sucks, and so they're really trying to just lower our expectations because the movie's that trash.
Yeah,
because Sony's definitely seen it. They've seen it a lot. they know by now whether or not it's good or if it's enough for like. They probably just want to appeal to like the 14, 15, 16-year-old guys out there, and that'll be enough. Like that's what happened with Venom. That was enough to. It was enough to appease them and get all the money that made. Even the sequel made a lot of money, even during the pandemic. So there's definitely an audience for it.
What could be cool is if they could do the Missing in Action formula to it. I'm not sure if you guys know the story, but they shot Missing in Action 1 and 2 back to back with Chuck Norris back in the 80s. And apparently the first one was so bad, but the sequel was good that they flipped them. They made the sequel Missing in Action 1, and then the original Missing in Action, they turned into a prequel/sequel and released it second. So it could be cool if they were like, all right, well, how about we do an origin story now or something like that? Make this in this huge window of time that we have, release this, and then we can release the original Morbius as its sequel because we know it will make money as a sequel.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting, actually. That reminds me of like when like the Fast and the Furious, like they were like, okay, we're gonna make Tokyo Drift. It's canon, like even though no one really likes it, we're gonna make it part of the grander franchise. Like you still need to watch it to understand what's going on. Well, that's pretty interesting, though. I wouldn't mind. They did that with Morbius. That'd be kind of cool, actually.
They could have done it twice already.
I know you could. For movies and like the 7 movie delay that like the 7 release date delay that this thing has had at this point. Jesus, I don't know. I just hope like even though box office numbers, even though Spider-Man is the only thing that was doing really, really well towards the end of the year, like they said today that like 30% of the total box office revenue in the US was all from Marvel movies in 2021. Wow. And that looks like it's going to be the same. And like, I mean, at least a chunk of it in 2022, there's so many more. You got Doctor Strange, you got Thor, you got like a bunch of them coming out in 2022. Hopefully with no more release date delays because of COVID or anything like that. It was so weird that the only thing about the Morbius delay that got me is that it kind of took me back to when they started delaying movies last year because of this. And I was like, I hope this isn't the case. Like, I'm excited for
sure.
And I was like, please don't delay Scream. It comes out next week. Just let me have it.
Yeah, just let us have it.
Just let us have it. Don't delay it. I know things are rough in Canada, but we can make it a hit in the US. Like, it's fine. But yeah, I do wanted to get into, because like on our first episode, we actually talked about the Vin Diesel, Dwayne Johnson feud, because that right before we did our first episode, Vin Diesel released an Instagram post, that
Instagram sob story
that seemed kind of like it was reaching a little bit. Basically like a public, like, this declaration to Dwayne Johnson, because they've had this feud, and Dwayne Johnson's like, I don't want to make any more Fast and the Furious movies. Like, some people thought it's publicity. Like, I know our girl Brittany thought that this is all one big publicity stunt. He's going to be in the next one. After what he said on CNN last week, I don't think it's a publicity stunt. I think he genuinely does not want to be involved in this anymore. Because, Vin Diesel's post basically was like begging him to come back, and he like used his kids in it too. He says that my kids call you Uncle Dwayne, and and this is what like Pablo would have wanted, which is a reference to like Paul Walker. And Dwayne Johnson, he's like, I told him directly that I would not be returning to the franchise. I was firm yet cordial with my words and said I would always be supportive of the cast and always root for the franchise to be successful. But there was no chance I would return. Vin's recent public post was an example of his manipulation. I didn't like that he brought up his children in the post, as well as Paul Walker's death. Leave them out of it. We had spoken months ago about this and came to a clear understanding. So that doesn't sound like someone that is trying.
That's the professional way of saying shut the fuck up.
It really is.
He really just it just proves how either immature Vin Diesel is and how much of a reach that he's trying to get to. Maybe he just knows that Dwayne is going to pull in so many viewers and people like Dwayne Johnson a lot. It might make this last movie like sort of an ultimate send-off that'll charge to the top of the box office. But that post was just super sad and a grab for attention, and The Rock saw right through it and put him in his place.
Yeah, well, there's also the sincerity issue here. Like, there's really no one more sincere and genuine than The Rock. I mean, you look at his Instagram videos, that's not an act. That's what he's doing. You actually see what he's doing every day, what he's eating, what his workout routines are. Vin Diesel's life is really secretive, and he really just kind of, like you said, grabs for attention when he can. And I've heard and read so many different sets that he was just so disruptive on to the creative process with the directors. Babylon AD apparently was supposed to be this amazing film, had a lot of talent behind it. Matthew Kastovitz, the director, said that halfway through the film, Vin Diesel essentially took it over and just turned it into the Vin Diesel show. And therefore we were kind of robbed of what could have been a really cool movie. And that just seems to be like his pattern in every film that he's in. Mm-hmm. Now, lucky for him, he's got all these franchises behind him. You know, he gets millions of dollars for saying 3 words in Guardians of the Galaxy. And then he's got all these Fast and Furious films and, you know, the XXX films, things like that. So I think he understands that his star is waning if these franchises start waning.
They already have. I definitely think they've been waning for a while, and that's why he's trying to pull the stunt. I mean, when's the last time a XXX movie was in the works or something like that? I guess there was. I mean, it's basically Fast and the Furious. They're riding motorcycles on tidal waves. So right. I mean, it's basically the same thing, but even more ridiculous. So, I mean, he really has one genre, one cash grab. He has one idea, and he's kind of milked as much as he can out of it. And besides that,
he's a human embodiment of the McRib.
Yeah, exactly.
we see the poster, we're like, oh, Vin Diesel's in something.
Yeah, I'm
fine. Yeah, I had Vin Diesel last year.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
I don't know if you like when you pay attention to his Instagram sometimes, but like a lot of like he likes to tease like the same projects. Like he'll like post something random and be like, "Oh, I had a really good meeting about Riddick like a week ago. Like it's really moving. It's really moving." And now like that'll be like a year ago. I was like, "Well, how long does it take for it to move, dude? Like what?" Like he keeps teasing all these things that he was once really famous. And like I kind of think that like there has to be like a jealousy factor there between him and Dwayne Johnson. And I don't mean that Dwayne Johnson's jealous of him. It's like
no, why would he be
at all? I mean, like I think there's this sense that from Vin Diesel that he brought him in because he did. I mean, it was a lot of like he brought him in at a time when like Dwayne Johnson was really internationally taking off as like a big movie star. It was like the right time. Mm-hmm. And then like, you know, eventually Dwayne Johnson became bigger. I don't know, maybe bigger than the franchise,
more consistently bigger. Like basically taking all the roles that Vin Diesel would have thought that he might have gotten. Like something for as simple as like Rampage. I could have seen Vin Diesel being in a movie like that, but it would have been completely different, boring, and not nearly as fun as Dwayne Johnson can make it. So, I mean, I think the studio started to realize the potential of Dwayne Johnson and the awfulness of Vin Diesel and why he doesn't work in movies that aren't just biker bars, basically.
Yeah. Well, and Dwayne Johnson's got the personality, he's got the humor, and he's got the charm, where Vin Diesel is really just stoic, straight-faced, really shows no emotion. He kind of plays a straight man to whatever charismatic character surrounds him. Right. But I think we've also seen where if it's just him and we don't have those interesting side characters, nothing happens.
Nothing.
I also agree it's in poor taste to use your kids in a post like that. And then also, I mean, I'm not crediting like the relationship he had with Paul Walker. I believe they were very close and they were like brothers. But to kind of use that as like the hook to get Dwayne Johnson to agree to come back, because like in the public eye, if like to anyone just watching it, if Dwayne Johnson says no, then there are some people who are going to be like, well, that's like kind of disrespectful to like Paul Walker. Like, I mean, Vin Diesel said like this is what he wanted. Like, why aren't you coming back? It makes him kind of look like an asshole if he says no. But I think like further in that quote, he actually kind of went into it more that like from the get-go, since I went to go do Hobbs and Shaw, that I've always wished them the best. I never like try to discredit the franchise. I want them to do well. You know, he's just like, I've had these conversations with him in private. We don't need to have public declarations about like, are you coming back? He's like, at this point, you know, I've had like, I remember when him and Tyrese were getting into it and they finally had like a private talk and they resolved whatever issues they had going on. And it wasn't being played out on social media. Like Vin Diesel is still playing this out on social media, I guess, in hopes of like changing his mind. It's not working at all.
No, it's definitely not.
I think it's crazy. Like whatever Vin Diesel did, whatever diva-like behavior, because I've heard a lot of stuff about him too. Even working for Joe Blow, like I haven't gotten to interview him yet, but a lot of people on our team have, and said he can be kind of a diva and he shows up late. You know, like Dwayne Johnson actually, they said has shown up late, but when he shows up late, he gives you like 30, 45 minutes more of his time because he's late. Mm-hmm. And Diesel still gives you 2, and that's it. So like whatever his behavior was, whatever he did, really pissed off Dwayne Johnson enough to be like, I don't want to work with this guy anymore. Like, and you know, we had a cordial conversation, like maybe we just don't gel like anymore. It doesn't work. But yeah, I think Vin Diesel's just begging because he wants that last movie to make a lot of money, and it would make a lot of money if Dwayne Johnson was back in some capacity. But he doesn't need the franchise, so he's probably just like, I'm good. I don't. You guys,
he doesn't need it.
Yeah, it's tough. I think Vin Diesel's kind of stuck in this. He still thinks it's 2002, and like, I mean, he still thinks that those movies are successful, and that's what the audience is wanting. I mean, he really hasn't done anything to speak out to people. The fact that he's pissed off one of the most loved actors of all time currently right now shows a lot. I mean, he's obviously must have been seriously unprofessional, really didn't show up and put the work in, was changing things that maybe weren't needed to be changed. I feel like the last person you want to piss off in Hollywood is The Rock. And if he's not giving you a stamp of approval, then I don't know why any of us should.
I feel like we're not going. I brought this up when we brought it up before in our first episode, like, because none of the other Fast and the Furious actors have really said anything negative about Vin Diesel. It's just been this kind of interaction with him and Dwayne Johnson. And I've always wondered if it's just like, if this is a matter of 2 egos just not meshing, or do other people in that cast know, well, this is how Vin Diesel's always been, and I'm just going to
dealt with it for years and years and years.
Because I'm along for this ride, and this ride is very lucrative. I don't know.
He made a lot of those people a lot of money. So I think that kind of given him the matter of the fact, but Dwayne Johnson came in, was already successful, didn't need to ride off the coattails, and was like, you know what, you don't get to act like this just because you made me famous, because you didn't. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I know that there's a lot of actors out there that continue to be successful, but they got their main start when they were doing the Fast and Furious. And I think that they kind of think that they might owe Vin Diesel for that, maybe. Just a thought, though.
Yeah, I can see that being the case, because, like, you know, they kind of started in this thing, like, you know, a lot of them were like, you know, Jordana Brewster was in like The Faculty before that. A lot of them hadn't been in a lot of stuff. Like Michelle Rodriguez had 1 movie credit before The Fast and the Furious. So they all kind of started together. It's kind of interesting though, because I remember when that franchise started, and then the first one made a lot of money, and when it came down to kind of doing the second one, he wanted like an absurd amount of money to come back. It was like no, and then he chose to do Triple X instead of doing like Too Fast, Too Furious. And then the only reason he did the cameo in Tokyo Drift because he wanted the rights to the Riddick character. He wanted to be able to take that back. So like in a lot of ways, he is a very like smart businessman in that sense, where he wants ownership of these things now. I mean, the Fast and the Furious franchise is his baby. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, he is the face of it, whether you like it or not. But I do agree. I do think that like he's like, this is the 10th one. This is the last one. Even though we're splitting it up into 2 movies, this is it. He's 54 now. I mean, he can still do action movies, but like, I don't know like where he kind of goes from here, or if he's just going to go back to the well of like old things he did before. Like, it's like, let me do a sequel to The Pacifier. Or let me do something from like from back in the day.
I mean, I honestly don't see him going the route of like Bruce Willis and Nicolas Cage, who show up in another VOD or Redbox movie like every other week. Like, I feel like I see their faces on a new poster, a new cover art every week in some movie that no one's going to watch. I don't see him doing that. I hear that he's got like all these other passions. Like, I guess he's a big Dungeons and Dragons fan, and he's trying to get that movie or a project based off of that. So, I mean, maybe he does take this time after the Fast and Furiouses are over to work on passion projects like that. But like we said, are people going to care when that time hits?
Yeah, I hope he takes a little look at himself and he's like, what do I really want to focus on? Because I mean, he was successful back in the day. I don't really know kind of where he took a turn. Maybe I think he's stuck in the past. Hopefully he can look forward and maybe create something that's new and original and actually people want to watch, because no one wants to see Triple X anymore. It's not going to sell tickets.
Yeah,
exactly. It's funny because we're like doing like the whole back to the Blockbuster approval thing about him, and it kind of just segued in this conversation where we're just really talking about his career. And I'm like looking at the stuff from earlier in this, like, Saving Private Ryan. He was the voice of the Iron Giant. Boiler Room is a great movie. He's actually really good in that.
Yeah.
Like, I think once he starts doing like the action movies, though, he gets kind of stuck. Like, he does Fast and Furious and he does Triple X, and then everything just kind of feels the same. Like A Man Apart. And then he just does a bunch of Fast and Furious movies. He does more Riddick, The Last Witch Hunter. Like, a lot of the stuff that I think he's trying to build other big franchises, and it's not working outside of the Fast movies, and then those are ending soon. And I even when he talks about being a part of like the Marvels, he talks about being a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even though it's 3 words. He got paid a lot of money to do it.
But I feel like it's more of a joke than it is actually like including him. Like, I feel like it's more funny for everyone watching. They're like, oh my gosh, that's Vin Diesel. It's so funny.
Yeah,
he talks about it like he's alongside like Robert Downey Jr. Like they're sharing the screen. It's just like, and you got paid a lot of money to dub it in a bunch of different languages. I get it. I mean, I would love to be in that position to get paid that much money to say 3 words. Probably.
But it could have been anybody. Like, they could have said, if he was still alive, Sean Connery, hey, I am Groot. It would have had the same recognition. It wasn't the fact that it was him. It was the fact that it was Marvel, and that movie was not projected to be as huge as it was. So now that character is iconic. I don't think the voice really had much to do with it.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think it did either. I don't even think having like, I guess it's cool to have his name. No, not really. Have his name on the poster just to say that he is in it. I mean, because they did. He's up there with Bradley Cooper, but Bradley Cooper definitely has more stuff to do as a voice actor in that. I just think it's funny because I feel like, we're talking about egos. I think his ego is that big where he's like, I'm a part of this universe too. Like, I have all these like things going on, and it's just, I think he's more of a legend in his own mind.
Yeah, he's definitely stuck in the past.
And like, it's I don't know what he does after these franchises are done, because like you said, I don't think anyone really wants to see another Triple X. You can maybe sneak in another Riddick. There are some sci-fi fans that like those, unless he lies to us and says like, no, he has got more. He has 2 more Fast and Furious movies in him. He's like got all these ideas now.
I wouldn't doubt it. He tries to get to 20.
But I don't know. Like, and overall, do you like him enough to give him like approval, or does it like not?
For me, it's a no. I don't see the thrill of him anymore. I'm bored by his antics. This whole social media thing for sure was just like sort of a grab for attention, which I think is just really sad. Trying to take the death of someone who's been loved and was starting to basically become more of a face of the franchise than he was, and trying to turn that into getting The Rock to come to the movies. Like, I don't know, man. I think that he had some hits early on. I thought his cameo in Saving Private Ryan was good. I actually laughed at The Pacifier. I thought it was entertaining. Not a great movie, but it was entertaining. But he doesn't do that stuff anymore. And he's not willing to go outside of his comfort zone. And his comfort zone has become oblique and just very boring at this point. Like, it's not seeing anything different, not seeing any creative outlooks, not seeing any change. So I don't give him my stamp of approval. If I saw him on a poster, I don't think I would make any change or any move to go and see it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I'm almost under the opinion that we need to let this guy crash and burn. He needs to take 10 years off after being like a joke in Hollywood and have someone like Tarantino or Paul Thomas Anderson or someone be like, you know, I'm going to put Vin Diesel as like the father figure in this movie, just completely against type, like he did with Travolta, like he did with Robert Forster in Pulp Fiction. Jackie Brown, and see if he can have a second wave of a career after he's let this whole kind of ego wave die down.
Wow, that's interesting. I never thought about it.
Yeah, that's actually a good, like, because he seems like the kind of actor that would, because like he's definitely shown potential before. It's not like I don't think he can not act. Like, as I brought up, you know, like Boiler Room, I love, and he's amazing in that. I can definitely see him taking like a bit of a break from like the franchises and, you know, these big action movies, and then having the right director like kind of pull something really great out of him. And then like maybe one day he can claim that he got nominated for something before like Dwayne Johnson did. He can have those bragging rights if he wants.
We've seen it happen to actors before. So
yeah, I kind of like I feel the same way. I think I kind of like I need more from him than what he gives us now. And then right now it just seems like there's like a sameness from him that he's not going to get out of until these franchises are done. Like once the Fast and the Furious wraps up, and then he stops taking meetings about Triple X or Riddick, or
if these meetings are even real.
I know. He said he's even taking meetings for another Bloodshot. They're gonna make another one of those. And
they're not. They're not. That movie made nothing.
And like the way he writes on Instagram, he's like, the people have been asking. I'm like, who has been asking?
No one's been asking for this.
Like your friends don't count. Like it has to be someone else. The general public, I haven't heard anyone like clamoring for Bloodshot 2 or another Triple X movie.
For those who even saw Bloodshot 1.
I know, right?
I didn't.
It came out right before everything shut down in 2020. I do remember that. And it went straight, and it was on video on demand, and I still didn't watch it. It wasn't even worthy of watching at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Right now, he's just perfected like mumble acting and grimacing. So he's really good at that. But yeah, I don't really give him my approval either. I kind of definitely can see potential in him doing more. Like you said, Antonio, like there's an avenue for that, especially with the right director. I think can pull something really great out of him. But he's going to have to like kind of sacrifice. You know, it kind of reminds me, this is a little different. I feel like Will Smith lately cares less about being like a movie star and more about being an actor. Like doing something like King Richard instead of, you know, playing to his, you know, strengths as like a charismatic movie star. I think Vin Diesel kind of needs something like that, where it's like, I don't really care about box office and all this. I just want to put in like a good performance and remind people that like I can do more than just kind of mug for the camera, you know? Like,
yeah, he should do it more for the craft rather than the money, which it seems like he's only going for in the last years.
Wholeheartedly agree. Well, I mean, we actually agreed. Like the first time we did this, we all loved Sandra Bullock. We all awesome. Jared Leto was a big old mix. Brittany right away. She didn't even like go through his filmography. She was just like, no. She just immediately tore Jared Leto apart. But this one was good. I mean, I think we all made really good points about why he's not really working for us right now.
He is officially not approved by
approved by Back to the Blockbuster. Not bad.
He's not cult worthy for the cultworthy.com.
Yeah, I'll throw you in there.
Stealing our segment.
Neither over here. I do want to just kind of, I didn't want to begin it on a sad note, but I had to bring it up just because Betty White was such a, even no matter what generation you are in, I think you kind of grew up with her on some level. She passed away at 99 on New Year's Eve, I guess. Shy of her 100th birthday. She would have been 100 on January 17th. I grew up watching the Golden Girls and still kind of watch it on Hulu and stuff like that. And she was just a hilarious human being. And like, I love that she continued to work even deep into like as she got older. You know, when like most people would kind of slow down, like she was in like The Proposal with Sandra Bullock and Ryan Reynolds. And I think she did like 5 or 6 seasons of that show Hot in Cleveland, while, you know, like that kind of gave her another resurgence a bit.
Saturday Night Live,
Saturday Night
Rock,
Live, you know, and her fans demanded that. They really were like, we want Betty White to host. Someone wrote on my Instagram that like, and I think this kind of explains it well, that she was like almost like everyone's grandmother, and like I think people are mourning it on that level, even though she was old and she lived a full life. I think there were some of us that were like, Betty White might outlive us all. That was the kind of thought I kind of had. Like even though I love Golden Girls and like I've seen some of her stuff from like the Mary Tyler Moore show before she did the Golden Girls, I'm also a big Lake Placid fan, which is she's in that. It's
fantastic.
and she's awesome in that too. But yeah, I didn't want to make it sad, but like she was a very very important person in the industry. A lot of people love her. All the tributes I've been seeing on TV and like just online is everyone having such nice things to say about her. It was just nice to see. And I don't know if you guys really kind of grew up watching.
Oh yeah, I grew up watching Golden Girls with my mom, and like you said, Mary Tyler Moore Show. I've always loved Betty White, and I was having this conversation with my girlfriend that she was not so pleased about all of the memes that were like hilarious about her passing away. And I was under the impression that I think she would have loved those. She's like, I'm taking 2021 with me, bitches, and that kind of stuff like that. Like, yeah. I think that was her sense of humor. And I think she would have appreciated the humorous memes because they're done out of respect. They really are.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think I didn't grow up watching the Golden Girls. I didn't necessarily grow up watching Betty White, but just from throughout the years and seeing her more consistently, I think that she really is just the perfect embodiment of continuing to stay young even as you get older and constantly finding the fun and the jokes and the humor and everything. Even one of my favorite cameos was her Super Bowl commercial where she gets decked and then eats a Snickers bar because they're acting like Betty White. Like even just saying yes to something like that just shows her willingness to go outside the box, do something different, continue to be funny, continue to be herself and not change and just kind of lay low and do something. She was working until the day she died, and I respect her for it, and I think everyone else did as well.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, that was really well said. Yeah, my mom was talking about like some of the stuff from the Golden Girls, and I still watch it, but you kind of forget how like irreverent some of it is. Like they were saying and doing a lot of things on that show back then that like I have to do like a double take sometimes. Like, did I hear that right? But I mean, that was a combination of just like good writing and then just like really good, solid female comedians just delivering all those lines. And like, someone made a point today that like all the Golden Girls are together now because they've all passed away. She was the last, and there was I forgot, I can send you guys a picture, but it was a really nice picture of all like four of them, and it was like a really cool kind of thing that like they're finally kind of all together. But yeah, everyone called her a national treasure. I kind of believe that too. I think I don't think anyone can say anything bad about Betty White.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to thank you, Antonio, for doing your best Brittany impersonation.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man. We really enjoyed having you.
Thanks for having me. I'll always come back if you ever need that third chair.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, and like everyone follow the Cultworthy Podcast because I love obscure cult movies, and like I thought I knew a lot about many of them, but he has shouted out some of them. Like I've just been writing down like ones I've never heard of. So like it's really good for stuff like that, and definitely something you should check out.
I like to tell people if you don't know what to see on streaming, check out my reviews, check out my website, and you will see things you never even heard of. And I try my best to do reviews on things that are accessible. I really don't want to tell people about things that they can only get in the UK, but I want people to like be able to find these movies.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man.
And appreciate
that's great.
them.
One of the ones that I wish that could be accessible is Dogma. That's one of my favorite sort of like cult classic, like Kevin Smith movies with Ben, like one of the first ones that I saw, but you literally can't find it anywhere. So yeah, it's one of those hard ones that unfortunately is tough to find.
Yeah, it's in a lot of legal issues right now because everyone's trying to make special editions. So there's a lot of legal entanglements of who's going to get it. So yeah, my guess is you'll probably see one from Arrow Video because they got Mallrats a couple of years ago. So that's gonna be my guess is they're probably gonna get the rights to that. But I mean, 1999, man, and throwing out a suggestion for you guys in the future. 1999 was the year of movies. You had Dogma, you had The Matrix, you had Fight Club, you had Magnolia, you had all these movies coming out in 99. Go back and look at the list, and it's just kind of like mind-blowing how many films came out that year that still resonate now.
So funny that you said that because we have a friend named Cooper who was hanging out with him a week or two ago, and him and a buddy said that 1999 they can't think of any other year that's better for movies. They think that 1999 is the best year for cinema. And then they were naming all this stuff that I kind of forgot came out in 99. And there's a strong argument for that.
Yeah, I agree with them 100%.
A solid argument for that. And that is a good idea for your future show, actually. I would probably love to have you on that one, too. That'd be really fun, actually.
That'd be cool.
Give me a holler.
All right, Owen, send us out. Do what you do best.
Yeah, always like to send us off. Unfortunately, even though talking to you guys on a Monday night is one of my favorite things to do, we do have to come to a close. And as always, we are a playlist original. You can find us anywhere you find podcasts, Spotify, Apple. I think we are on Google playlists. We also have a YouTube channel. My cat entered the picture this time. I had to put him down. So if you want to see him strutting around, then please go and enjoy that. And please just thanks for everyone who's watching. We actually bumped up to #1 on the Good Pods app. Is that right, Gates?
Yeah, we were number over the weekend. I checked it today. We're #4 now. That's cool.
Okay.
That whole list is really cool.
It happens, man.
Yeah.
I've been #1 like 3 times, and then down to 5, down to ups. It's ups and downs.
Yeah, there you go. And just want to say, when we talked about it last, I said I'm not okay with #2, so I'm going to continue to push for that #1.
Do it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Antonio. It was a pleasure, and hope to do it again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.